I want to start with clearing out one of the biggest, I guess, misconceptions a lot of people have is between what their period is and what their cycle is. So, your period is only one small part of your cycle. Your cycle is the days between day one of one period and day one of another period. And your period is just the days that you're actively bleeding. So instead of, I guess, going from the fact that we should only be tracking those few days, we should be tracking our entire cycle. And that would mean tracking basic things, which I'll go over, but it's basically tracking your symptoms, tracking important things to make sure that you get a better understanding of your whole cycle and not just those few days that you're bleeding. Period tracking is actually a really, really good way to get in touch with your whole body because our cycles are so dynamic and so easily influenced by our lifestyle choices, our health, and things like that. That if your period is going a little up and down, you can sort of go back and be like, okay, maybe it was something I did. I made a change in my diet. I was really stressed. Maybe there's an underlying health condition. All of these you can get some or the other insight from looking at your periods and seeing whether there's any irregularities in them. So that would be the first thing, that you can get a really good understanding of your own body. The second thing, like I said, is once you start tracking, it's that possibilities where you'll start picking up on symptoms earlier. Like, say, irregular periods is a sign of one of the signs, I would say, of health condition called PCOS. But how would you know you have irregular cycles if you're not tracking them? You could just be like, maybe this day was this, that day was that. But unless you're actively making log of this day to this day, this day to this day, I was on, this is my cycle. How do you know whether your cycle was irregular or not? That would be the second one. Thirdly, say you are picking up on symptoms, then you also want to track these symptoms. Because talking about irregular periods, a one-off irregular period is fine. But if it's constantly happening, then that's a point of worry. So you also get the opportunity to then start tracking those symptoms. And that brings me to my next point, which is when you go to your doctor because you might be experiencing something that's worrying you, it's easier for them to get insight. So if you give them a detail like, okay, this is what happened, this to this date, this is the medication I take, that's helping them to sort of, I guess, narrow down on what might be causing you these concerns. There's also this group of people, I think the last one, which sometimes I guess we unknowingly do it. Good practice, I guess, because there are days when you would be a little more tired or a little in pain, and you wouldn't want to be doing things which are not okay for you or your body, or you feel that I can't push this much on this day. So there are people who tend to prioritize their schedules around their cycles. So these are just a few reasons and a few benefits that you may get by tracking your cycles. It's actually really easy. There are multiple apps out there which you can get now. Some of them have free versions, some of them you need to pay a little bit here and there. But you don't need anything fancy. You can just take a simple diary or a notebook and just as long as you're tracking the main things, you're okay. You don't need an app. You can use a diary. And the few things that you want to track is, number one is your cycle length. So how long your cycle was. We always have this intuition that we've always been told that a normal is 28 days, but that's not the case. Anything between 21 to 35 days is absolutely normal. So you want to start by tracking your cycle length. You want to track how many days you're actively bleeding. So that's your period length. You want to track your flow. You want to track whether or not you have excessive pain. If you have pain, then maybe what's working. Sometimes you might need to take extra medication. Sometimes medication is not working. All these things matter. You want to track your PMS symptoms. So that would be like if I'm having a backache, if I'm having, feeling particularly like craving something suddenly, all of these things, it gives you a good idea, which are also really important. Like say your pain, or if you're feeling excessively bloated, you're craving something. Your mood as well is very important. And throughout your cycle, you'll also notice changes in your discharge, which you can track to track something, which people track to track their fertile window. So all these things are basic things that you should be tracking. Gives you very good insight, not only to your cycle and your reproductive health, but also your overall health in general.